Next time on a very spooky fine dining podcast, the season 1 finale, TGI Fridays the 13th. Oh, you betcha, pineapple's gonna hit the fan as Michael's son Juicy, or in this episode, Juice son Voorhees, goes on a murderous rampage, and no one is safe. It gets real spooky, it gets real bloody, and not everyone's gonna make it to the end of the episode. Who will live, who will die? Listen to Fine Dining, the search for the most mediocre restaurant in America, break down a trip to TGI Fridays based on the atmosphere, the service, and the food, and try not to be scared to death. Hear the thrilling finale of Fine Dining, Wednesday, October 25th, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to my podcast. Of course, it's registered in my husband's name, but it's mine really. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and this is Non-Censored. Hello and welcome to Non-Censored, the podcast that wraps up all the best bits from my very real daily radio show, which we're currently working on submitting to the Radio Academy ARIA Awards. And if last year is any indication, we are cautiously optimistic. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and I'm joined as ever by my producer Martin. What a show we've got for the listeners this week, eh, Martin?
Yes, we've got an interview with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, as well as his ethics advisor, Sir Stephen Stevens. And Facebook's Nick Clegg got on the line to discuss letting Donald Trump back on.
As always, there's so much we didn't have time for. We had a brilliant segment on trans people in prison, didn't we?
Yes, and what was surprising about that was that everyone agreed it was well balanced, respectful to all sides, and nobody complained at all.
Yeah, such a shame we couldn't include it. Anyway, listeners, please remember that we need questions for a new monthly Time for Questions episode of this podcast. Please email a voice note to noncensoredpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll use our favourites in a show soon. How many emails have we had so far, Martin?
Including the ones with exciting offers of business?
No.
1.
Okay, well, that's not enough. Listeners, I demand that you send a voice note to noncensoredpodcast@gmail.com, or you won't be able to listen to the rest of this podcast.
We don't actually have the technology to do that.
Well, let's start with the big man himself. Well, the man himself, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Prime Minister, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. I think I've answered that question already.
Okay, right. Yes, no. To be fair, you answered it in the pre-record.
The preamble.
The preamble, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you for coming on the show. We want to talk to you about Nadeem Zahawi. Now,
just hold on 1 second. Let me. Sorry. Yeah. Carry on. Yes.
What do you say to the calls to sack him? I mean, the calls are getting louder, Prime Minister.
Well, look. Nadeem and I haven't been able to speak much this week. In fact, we haven't spoken at all.
Oh.
I've been incredibly busy going up and down the country trying to make sure that we're levelling up and we're giving people the things that they want, which is to be able to feed their families.
Can I pick you up on that?
Themselves.
Because levelling up, I thought that was on the way out, but it's still happening, is it?
Well, we're always levelling up. A Conservative government is one which levels up, whether we have a scheme for it or a minister for it or not. A Conservative government ensures levelling up for everybody. So that's I'm getting on with the job at hand, delivering on my manifesto, so yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah. I've flashed. Great. So that's what we're doing. Oh no, nothing. Just nothing.
Prime Minister, it seems like perhaps you've got a bit of background noise. Sorry, this is producer Martin. I'm just keen to get a good line so we don't miss anything you're saying.
No, it's pretty clear audio. I'm connected to my Bluetooth.
Okay. My mistake, please.
The control panel just seems a bit different on this, but it should be fine.
I mean, the Prime Minister's a very busy man. He's obviously rushing around, but he's still got time to speak to us, and I think that's great.
Yes. Well, exactly. And like I said, I'm getting on with the business of delivering for the people.
Delivering for the people, levelling up.
Yes, and making sure the economy's strong. and all of that.
But you haven't had a chance to speak to Nadeem this week at all?
No, Nadeem and I haven't spoken, and I've heard some rumblings, and to be honest, I'm not really entirely sure of the full extent of it, and I'll speak to him at some point to clarify this.
When will you speak to him?
I've said that I'll speak to him, so I think that answers your question. That the when is kind of an irrelevance here.
But if we're sort of talking, in vague terms, when will you speak to him?
I'll speak to him at the right time, at a time during a particular day. It'll be somewhere between Monday and Friday, between the hours of 8 and 5 p.m. So I've answered the question. There's a specific time at which I'll speak to him.
And that will be forthcoming. That'll be in the next few days, will it?
It'll be on a day ahead from now.
Because, Prime Minister, not only all the sort of hullabaloo about his tax, but also he's now facing questions over a 30 million unsecured loans to his wife's property company. So has he been a naughty boy? Does he need to be talked to?
I don't really understand why the media does this. Personal affairs between husband and wife are between husband and wife. What my wife does with her money is entirely her business, and what I do with my money is entirely my business. Same with Nadeem, I'm sure. Whatever their arrangements are, as you well know, Harriet is someone who's in a loving long-term relationship.
Yes, I am.
There are always various different kind of arrangements you have to make. So I'll speak to Nadeem to fully understand. I don't want to pry too much in his personal life, just as I don't think anyone should pry in my personal life. Yeah, go on. You can cross.
I'm sorry.
You can cross.
Prime Minister, I do have to say, this really does seem like the kind of thing that you have had levelled at you in the past, which is encouraging or certainly allowing a system which feels like a one rule for them and another for us. How would you respond to that claim?
I don't know why. I don't think it has to be levelled at me at all. I don't know why. I've answered that question at the time when it was levelled at me. I answered it then. So if you want an answer to that question, what I'd suggest is you refer back to that answer when I answered it then.
So you have answered.
Well,
you have answered the question.
I've answered the question.
Right. So when it was levelled at you were busy levelling up, I guess. So you were levelling up away from the question.
I was levelling the question. The question was levelled at me.
Right.
So I levelled the question.
Yep.
By answering it in a very levelled way, in a very levelled manner, and now I'm being asked the question again.
Right.
And I don't think that it is the right level of questioning because the question has been answered at the time it was levelled at me.
Prime Minister, is this what levelling up is? Because I've never really understood it between you and all our listeners.
Well, look, we've published documents. If you don't understand what levelling up is, there's a whole suite of documents on a government website, and that can be answered. And this person just needs to turn left when the left light goes on.
Sorry.
There's two lanes of traffic.
Right, what's that got to do with anything?
Oh, nothing. I was just observing what's happening on Sadiq Khan's roads.
Right. Yes. Someone's really got to battle him around.
Prime Minister, just to bring it back to Nadeem Zahawi, if you don't mind, this tax carelessness obviously is of great concern, especially with the tax deadline for self-employed people just a week away. How would you respond if perhaps, as it could be, 67 million Britons find themselves being a little careless and then refusing to pay the £100 penalty? I mean, really, if he's allowed to do it, then so should everyone else. It sets a very bad precedent for the public, wouldn't you agree?
Well, if people don't want to pay the £100 fine, that's £670 million that we're not going to spend on the NHS. That's £670 million we're not going to spend on education. That's £670 million we're not going to spend on helping Ukraine. So if people want to have that on their conscience and not pay the £100 fine, that's entirely their prerogative. But then they can't come to me and my government and complain when they haven't paid their taxes. So that's entirely up to them.
Are you saying that Nadeem Zahawi, so anyone can do what they want as long as they don't come crying to you afterwards? Is that official government policy?
That sounds quite a good government policy, actually.
I just don't like crying, you know. I've already answered the question. I don't know what more I can tell you. I've answered the question. People should just stop crying.
Now, look, it hasn't escaped our notice that you are, in fact, in your car as you talk to us. So I owe it to my listeners to ask, are you wearing a seatbelt?
Well, that's a ridiculous question. It's not my car.
Oh.
You only wear a seatbelt when it's your car, and this isn't my car.
Mm-hmm.
Neither was the car that I was filmed in. That wasn't my car.
Right.
It was a prime ministerial government car.
Are you driving this car?
Well, people seem to not take kindly to the fact that I was being driven in the last video. So I am driving. I'm driving and doing. I'm on Bluetooth though, so that's fine.
Right.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been a wonderful interviewee, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, look, thank you. That's very kind and perfectly timely as well. Thank you so much. Lovely to speak to you again. Yeah, hi. Can I get a breakfast wrap with the hash browns inside, please? What do you mean you don't do them anymore?
Now, everybody's talking about ethics these days. It's actually quite tiresome, isn't it? Ethics this, ethics that.
Is that why you didn't turn up to the training session on corporate responsibility?
Exactly. What business is it of theirs whether I mention men's grooming products available at low, low prices in this podcast? Anyway, one man who knows about ethics is Sir Stephen Stevens, who you may remember from the show last year. He's now the ethics advisor to Rishi Sunak's ethics advisor, and we caught up with him earlier this week. Sir Stephen Stevens, welcome back to Non-Censored.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be back.
It's lovely to have you here. And now, I want to talk with you about all things ethics. There's a lot to talk about.
Big
lot
topic.
to talk about, Sir Stephen.
Yes, it's a huge topic. Ethics this. I mean, one might think it's useless to even start talking about it. Such a big topic. We couldn't even do it justice today. I mean, we should just chat about dogs or cats or something.
Oh,
Is
I
that
do
in
actually
general
have. I do have a dog.
Do you?
I never shy away from having a little conversation. Yes.
And what kind is it?
Oh, it's a black lab, Lucy. Yeah, she's great. She's a lot of fun.
You gave it a name.
Yes. Do you not name your?
No, for me, a dog is a working animal. It needs a number, and it needs. Otherwise, you can't do the payroll into the month. But it doesn't need a name.
And how many dogs do you have?
Oh, 400-500.
Wow,
That's a lot of dogs.
that is. And is this typical of
That's a lot
an
of
ethics
dogs,
advisor?
I wouldn't trust any man who owned less than 30 dogs.
Well, there you go. That's
Well,
bit of a bombshell to start
I want to
the
move on
interview on.
from
Yeah, well,
Martin's
yeah,
dogs. I
fair enough.
feel that's not what the listeners want. They don't want to hear about your disgusting dogs. Now, Sir Stephen, let's start with the big news at the moment. There's still a lot of talk about Nadeem Zahawi and the 800 grand. Now, can you throw some light onto this?
Oh, I think there's a bit of a confusion here.
Yes.
Harriet, actually, Nadeem wasn't the 800,000 pounds. That's Boris Johnson. Nadeem Zahawi is an undisclosed number of millions of pounds that we don't know.
Oh, I see.
Much clearer.
It's
It's
just
very
you get
simple.
confused, don't you?
So many.
You must have this all the time.
I do. I mean, people keep coming to me saying, you're an ethics advisor. What do you think of these? And they just throw numbers at you and you just go, oh,
There's so many numbers.
ethical probably.
And I suppose, a number is just a number at the end of the day. So what really does it matter?
It is. Money is a fiction which we've told ourselves in order to keep various societal wheels running. So the idea that it could be either ethical or unethical is a nonsense.
I do feel I need to chip in here and say that, I mean, that there is quite a lot of money at stake here, especially at a time where people are really struggling through a cost of living crisis. So the £800,000 that
Yes.
Boris Johnson has reportedly been given in some form of credit facility is... I mean, and the tax evasion, alleged tax evasion from Nadeem Zahawi as well, is it really is quite bad, I think.
But it is funny, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people, just like me, thought it was one and the same thing,
Yes. I mean, who cares?
Do we really need to differentiate? Yes.
It's all just very confusing. None of us really understand it. So we may as well just put our faith in the fact that our politicians know what they're doing. If they didn't know what they were doing, would they be able to access a credit line of £800,000 over a dinner? Can you do that, Producer Martin?
No, but no.
No.
No, I
See?
can't.
You're not that caliber of person. Distinctly unethical. If I saw you wandering around with 800,000 pounds, I'd have many suspicions. Whereas Boris Johnson, he can get through 800,000 in a week.
There was also some questioning, wasn't there? Because he gave the job to Richard Sharp, who had organised this money. Yeah.
I mean, they go back a long way. They're very good friends. There's nothing unethical about giving jobs to your old friends, is there?
Isn't it funny, Sir Stephen? Because I feel that in the day and age we live now, suddenly friendship is penalised.
It is absolutely penalised. It's a disgrace in this country. You can't even hire your wife to be your administrative assistant at the taxpayers' benefit anymore, which used to be the only reason to have a wife.
Yes. What is the country coming to?
I don't know.
What is it coming to? And you must have your work cut out, because let's get this straight. You're currently advising the current ethics advisor.
Yes, I'm the advisor
Laurie
to
Magnus,
the
is that right?
ethics advisor. Yes.
Yes.
He's an independent ethics advisor. I'm a very dependent ethics advisor. But
Brilliant.
I
Yes,
think
important to have both.
I think you're right that this has had a knock-on effect on very innocent things like friendship. Because I used to be very gregarious, but over the last few years, I found that friends have just generally drifted away, fallen away.
Oh.
And I can't help but think that's society's fault.
Yes. Oh, Sir Stephen. Yes.
It's a very lonely life. Eating mayonnaise from a jar.
I don't think that's necessarily society's fault. But
Martin, if they won't let him employ his friends,
Precisely.
that is society's fault.
Why would someone be friends with you if you can't employ them?
If you're not,
if you're not offering them money, why would they be friends with you?
I was also
and why would you be friends with them if they're not paying for your wallpaper?
Precisely.
You know?
Well, this is raising a lot of questions here. I mean, I was largely focusing on the mayonnaise from a jar thing, but
It's a very lonely life, but with 400 or 500 dogs around, it feels less empty.
Yeah.
You have to make the big calls on whether things are ethical or
I've
not.
got the balls to make the calls.
Well, that's certainly one way of putting it.
That's the way Boris Johnson used to put it.
Well, there you go then. Could we give you a few scenarios and you could just tell us whether they're ethical or unethical?
Oh, yes, this sounds like a good game. Right. Ethical or unethical? You've got a jingle.
We should get a jingle for that.
I'll see what I can do for the podcast.
Jingles. Yeah.
Yeah, it does cost money to have the jingles made.
Just ask someone to arrange a lunch for you for £800,000. Funny. Money's not a problem. You just need to ask Richard Sharp.
Okay, well, here's the first one. I have been given a gift of £4. But the person that gave me the gift is now benefiting from greater access to my business dealings. It's a kind of quid. Well, it's a quid pro quo, or rather
quid pro quo.
It is a 4 quid pro quo. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think is this specifically you we're talking about?
No, I'm in government in this.
In which case that's completely ethical. No, that's of course. I mean, how else?
That's good.
How else are we going to come up with the money to run the country if we don't invite people, specific business people with specific interests in specific issues, to contribute?
Right.
Well, I think that's brilliant.
Well done, you. So innovative to take money in exchange for services in that way.
Brilliant.
Right.
This is great. Roll on, Martin.
Okay. I'm a high-level politician. I've just had my apartment redone.
Yes.
I didn't have the money to do it myself, so I got someone else to pay for it. I accepted a gift of, let's say, a bit more money this time. Let's say £20,000.
All right. Okay. A gift. I mean, gifts are gifts, aren't they? I mean, I fail to see, as Harriet was saying, it's really quite depressing the way in this country we are bound and determined to see ulterior motives in everything, including the most good and true, decent things that are known to the human spirit, specifically gifts of money.
So sad. It is so sad.
Well, I mean, can I just turn this on its head now and ask you whether these things would be seen as ethical in any other part of public life?
Absolutely. I think the giving of gifts of money is absolutely key to the British understanding of themselves. Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, one of our great stories of generosity of spirit, and it ended up with Ebenezer Scrooge giving a gift of money to his employees.
Oh,
And doesn't that just warm the heart, doesn't it?
That does warm the heart. And Martin, I give your, I don't know if it was a child or a dog in your family, but I gave them money, didn't I? For their
It was
birthday.
book token, yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes.
The problem I think that
Is
people
that
have...
ethical, Martin?
Well, I mean, a child's book token is probably fine.
Right, so wallpaper, and it's or gifts in kind are fine, are they?
They're not that different.
No.
They're not that different, Martin.
You could wallpaper a
problem
room
is-
with book tokens.
That would be a very expensive wallpaper, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Not
but-
as expensive as the wallpaper they did get.
No,
Yes.
that's true. It was gold, wasn't it?
Yeah, that tens of thousands of pounds. In fact,
I think...
if you could
I
find
think the
book
issue-
tokens to the value of £10,000, you'd make the book token scheme seem worth it.
The point is that I think a lot of people see this as being a vulnerability in our leaders, that perhaps they could then be coerced into doing other things if they owe money, if they feel like they owe favour to particular people. And it is tantamount to bribery, accepting bribes, being open to that kind
Very
of
strong
malpractice.
Well, I think we should examine the point. I think there's something there. Yes, people who owe a lot of money, of course, could be susceptible to bribery, which is why we should keep on giving them more money. Then they won't owe anything. You think as soon as you've given them 800,000, then he doesn't need to worry anymore, does he?
Yeah. Well, Sir Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
They're in safe hands. The government, ethically, they are in safe hands when they've got you on their side. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. It has been lovely to be here. Is the fee in cash or it'll be backs?
We can probably talk about that off air. It's
What's that mean? Yeah, it's secure.
This week, President of Global Affairs of Facebook and host of the Remember Clegg Mania podcast, Nick Clegg, announced that Donald Trump would be allowed back. We caught up with him in the metaverse.
well, it was actually Zoom.
Nick Clegg, I believe this is your first time on the show. Welcome to Non-Censored.
Thank you so much for having me. Former Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. Lovely to be here. Lovely to be back.
Yes. Now,
Do you remember 2010?
Yes, I do. I do remember 2010.
Great. That's good. That's good. Just always good to make sure that everyone's on the same page, you know. Great time.
Hey, was it a great time?
Happiest days of my life.
Really, 2010?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you wouldn't understand until you've won an election, but really, when you win an election, that's sort of the peak. That's the best it gets.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. But you're having a good time right now. I mean, you're doing well.
Still, doing really amazingly now. Very, very happy, working for an amazing company, an amazing boss, changing the world, influencing people's lives for the better. Really happy.
Yes, lots
Doing
of
well.
lots of wonderful changes. There has been recently, though, of course, Nick, quite a controversial change: the reinstatement of President Donald Trump. I mean,
Yes.
Hats off to you, I say. I mean, about time.
You're glad. You're glad he's back.
Yes. I mean, you know, cancelling Donald Trump sat very ill at ease with me. So I'm very glad to see him back. And also, he's funny. He's a funny man.
Well-
and that counts for a lot.
This is what a lot of people are saying. You know, I've been taking a lot of flack for it over the last few hours. People who aren't happy about it. So it's a relief, Harriet, to hear that you're one of the people celebrating his return.
Yes.
I just think, I really don't think that this is a position that I need to sort of fight to defend. I think it's important that we let these voices out there, you know?
Definitely.
Nick, hi. Producer Martin here.
Hi.
Sorry.
Hi, Martin.
Yes.
Great to meet you.
Lovely to meet
Do you remember 2010,
too.
Martin?
I do remember 2010, yes.
Great times.
Certainly a good year for many people.
MGMT were around, weren't they? MGMT.
Oh, loves them. That is great album.
Electric
full of,
Feel and Kids and all
yes.
those songs we used to love to dance to. Great times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love to
Well,
think
pretty
about
much
it.
anything before 2016 was, in hindsight, quite fun.
Yeah.
Which, of course, links into Donald Trump. Because, you're saying you're getting a bit of flack. Maybe there's some people that think that he is a controversial character and therefore shouldn't be allowed on these platforms.
Yeah.
do you have a line as to what demarks perhaps someone that is less than ideal on these platforms, spreading hate, inciting rioting, maybe the 6th of Jan storming of the Capitol building, for example, might mark him out as someone that isn't ideal.
Maybe the reason why the storming of the Capitol happened on the 6th of January was because there wasn't enough balance, We weren't hearing both sides of the argument. Maybe if somebody else had been able to reply to Donald and say, maybe let's not storm the Capitol, then perhaps the Capitol wouldn't have been stormed. And that's really what this decision is about. It's about fair debate, balance, hearing both sides. It's so important to hear both sides of the story. Do you like Phil Collins?
I love Phil Collins.
Do you remember the song Both Sides of the Story?
Yes.
That's what we play here at the office at Meta headquarters every single day because it's what we believe in and it's a banger.
And Nick, that's so true. I mean, Facebook comments, they are the backbone of our democracy.
Yeah.
That's why
everyone's on Facebook these days.
Yes, everyone's on Facebook, and that's why I always comment on all my friends and family's posts. Often to pick them up on rather tacky things they've posted.
To provide fair debate and balance and accountability. It's important. If your cousin posts one thing on Facebook, then it's important to kind of, reply in the comments and say the opposite of that thing so that overall we're all aware of consensus,
Well, just to throw another bit of balance to the argument, if you will.
Okay, I'm really happy to hear your side of the argument, Martin, because that's what this is all about. So please let us hear it.
There have been some concerns about misinformation on Facebook in particular, with the demographic that are slightly older using it as their primary social media, and that hasn't really been combated.
Older demographic? I think everybody is on Facebook, Martin. I think you implied there that only older people were using it, but I think you'll find it's everybody uses Facebook.
I'm sure there is a great range of people. Predominantly everyone. Right. Well, my point was that there's a great deal of misinformation going on. And what are you doing to stop the loudest voice being the one that is just taken as gospel?
Well, look, for people to reach conclusions, they have to hear everything, don't they? So Donald Trump, I don't know exactly how many followers he's got on Meta. I think it's something like 35 million. Yeah. So, that's a huge number of people who have the right to make an informed decision. So when Donald Trump says to his 35 million followers, this person is a paedophile or a Satanist or whatever he wants to say, that's important information. It's one side of the story. And then those 35 million people can hear the other side of the story, can hear that person say, no, really, please, no, stop. And then it's up to them to decide. I don't think the loudness of the voice comes into it, really. I think it's about
it's just
hearing everything.
Two sides of the debate. Yeah, so, yes, as you say, it's him saying, this guy's a paedophile, the other guy saying, please stop attacking me, stop smashing my windows, stop coming round.
And that's a fair response. It's important that we hear that response.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Do you think, Nick, that it'd be great to get some more people? You've reinstated Trump, which I think is wonderful, but I think there's other people you could reinstate.
Oh?
Kanye West, Andrew Tate.
Okay.
My favourite, she's an absolute darling, Katie Hopkins.
Oh,
get her back on
yes,
Facebook, I say. Yeah. Victor Bout, the Merchant of Death.
What does he do? Sounds quite bad, the Merchant of Death. Would we get in a lot of trouble for that?
No, not if there was balance, I suppose.
It's about hearing the other side of the debate, isn't there? Yeah, so he is the Merchant of Death, but I think it's important, isn't it, that we hear his side? And I think if someone wants to use Facebook to wreak vengeance or death, then surely that is their democratic right.
I just think, have you both seen Friday the 13th?
Long time ago,
yes.
And A Nightmare on Elm Street, these sorts of films.
Yes.
I know these, yep.
We just believe very passionately here at Meta that you need to see both sides of the thing. Like, imagine those films if they didn't have Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, these homicidal maniacs that chase around. That's where the excitement comes from. That's where the films really kind of take off. If we didn't have those people in there, the films would just be of teenagers sort of sitting around not doing anything.
But they might tell quite
those
nice
dissenting
stories.
voices,
Nick,
voices who disagree.
We don't want Freddy Krueger on Facebook, though.
And also, I'm not saying we bring back Freddy Krueger.
He can kind of move through mediums as well. I mean, he can move people through people's dreams. So he probably can, get him on Facebook.
As soon as you let him on Facebook, he'll be on absolutely everything.
Yes, he'll be everywhere and getting into people's houses all over the place. For me, I think that would be a step too far.
I'm not saying he himself will come back. I just think that that spirit of healthy. I mean, imagine Star Wars without Darth Vader. We need to be able to hear both.
Again,
that would be lovely.
I don't think
so that we can
I don't
decide.
know if I want Darth Vader on Facebook either. I mean,
we won't bring Darth Vader onto Facebook.
Okay, right? No, good.
I'm just saying. Without debate, we live in a vacuum, we live in space.
That's very true.
Well, but I think that it is important to address that, yes, perhaps you won't have Darth Vader, but what about Darth Maul? Or, one of the lesser... I mean, perhaps not the Emperor.
Well, the good thing about Darth Maul, actually, is he doesn't say very much, so...
No, and he was mostly following orders, right?
And put on emojis to people's
He's
posts.
Got a double-ended lightsaber. He's twice as dangerous by some, accounts as Darth Vader, and he looks scary. So, look, for children, that's a double fear.
Oh well,
spikes coming out of his head.
We take it very seriously about protecting children from harmful content online. So, if he looks scary, then he's absolutely having nothing to do with it. We won't put him back, and that's a promise.
Well, does that? I mean, can that extend to wrestlers?
You guys remember 2010 when I make a promise. Whether it's, I'm going to remove Donald Trump from Meta permanently or I'm going to scrap tuition fees, when I make a promise, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. But that doesn't necessarily change the fact that it may not mean anything and I might row back on it further down the line. But I mean it.
Yeah, and I guess
really.
It's the thought that counts, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, all these decisions are kind of above my pay grade. I keep taking these jobs where I end up basically in thrall to a stronger personality than me, and I sort of get sent out to do the interviews and take a certain amount of accountability for it. But I'll be honest, I just do what Mark tells me to do.
Oh.
No, Nick.
So I mostly just live in the metaverse now. I don't really leave it that often. But it's fun in here, guys. You should come and join me.
Are you trapped in the metaverse, Nick?
I'm in the metaverse right now.
Right.
Can you see this?
No.
It's a mimosa. It's a meta mimosa.
How
It's
does
delicious.
it taste?
It tastes amazing. It's so good in here, guys. You should come and join.
Okay, I think we've got another. We've got
to go now, Nick. And
interviewee coming
Understood.
up.
But
I just hope I've made the points clearly. It's all about encouraging the conversation. I was so happy to hear your take, Martin. I was so happy to hear your take, Harriet.
Okay.
I feel like now I can make my mind up, and my decision is I'll do what I'm told.
Well, Nick Legg, thank you very much for coming to talk to us, and good luck in there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you guys.
Well, that was the show, and what a show it was, Martin?
Ah, yeah, I loved it. It's got a special place amongst the others with me. Maybe top. How many have we done now? 30? Top 30 for sure.
Top 30 is something people could write in a review, couldn't they, Martin? They could review the podcast, say nice things about it.
Of course, they could give us 5 stars, write a nice little message, and of course, remember to send us a voice note to noncensoredpodcast@gmail.com if they wanted to do that too.
With thanks to Rosie Holt, Brenda Murphy, Ishan Akbar, Nat Tapley, Jos Norris, and Ed Morrish. I've been Harriet Langley-Swindon, and this was Non-Censored.